First of all, before I answer that, I have something to say. There is a reason why there are not too many people in certain professions who are not involving themselves in politics. And it's difficult for them because there was a system that was created some time ago which makes politics exclusive to certain kind of people. So they say, now you have to resign your job before you go and stand for political office. And what you have is, if there's somebody like me, for instance, in the civil service or in any profession, at my age, I should have worked probably in civil service. If I'd been there soon after school, I would have worked there maybe in excess of 20 years. So I've probably reached a certain status in that place. So you're telling me now, resign that and go into the lottery of elective politics. And I have no chance of going back to pick up my career from where I left it. So what do I do? Most people decide I will stay with my profession because at least I'm sure of what I have here. The other one is a bit of a gamble. Now, as a result, you miss out on the best brains in our politics because of a law which was made just to ring fence politics for certain people. Now, actually, that's one of the things which hurts me, and it's one of the things which I will change when I become president. Why should somebody quit their job to go for politics? Because politics is a very important thing. At best, you tell them take 6-month non-paid leave. In case you fail in elections, you come back to your place and it is still there waiting for you, and require even all companies to do the same way it is with, let's say, giving birth maternity leave. Because the reason they give maternity leave is we all understand we came through that way. We need our mothers to go and give birth because, we're giving birth. Now, politics is so important that if Timothy here wants to go for politics and he thinks he has the best ideas, I should not tell him, give up your career. No, I tell him, suspend your career for 6 months. In case you win, then you can give up here and go there. In case you don't win, come back here and start from where you stopped. Now, why was that law put there? To keep out the best brains out of politics. Now, that's why you have politics which is full of people who have nothing to lose. Well, so now, going back to
the question.
Okay, now to the question.
What do you make of Uganda's foreign policy?
Uganda's foreign policy, the way it has been done right now, and there are things which are good and bad. The first one is we are moving away from, a certain kind of diplomacy to now political diplomacy into economic diplomacy, which means that we are creating embassies in places where we have a lot of economic interests. Now, that is the top thing, what they talk about, but in reality it's a bit different because we have 36 embassies in different countries. Some of them are difficult to explain. For instance, we don't have too much business with Iran. We have an embassy in Iran. We have a lot of business with Israel. They are involved in a lot of minerals and so on. We do not have an embassy in Israel. Neither do Israel have an embassy here. Now we are creating another embassy in Angola, and yet we do not have any real business in Angola. And the problem with our foreign policy has been that you look at the 36 ambassadors that we have, only 2 out of them are career diplomats. The rest are failed politicians and failed soldiers and failed people like that. Only just 2 out of 36 are career diplomats. Now, we are creating an embassy in Angola to make room for Kaka, because apparently he has been dispatched off here and so on. But we have no business with Angola as it is. And there are countries with which we have serious business where we do not have embassies. So, in brief, the way our foreign policy has been is a bit haphazard. Now, what I would do is I would move more in the direction of economic diplomacy. And now, establish embassies, number 1, in places where we have serious business, and number 2, make those embassies pay for themselves through what they bring into the country. For instance, they will have, most of these embassies here actually pay for themselves, even for the first world countries, through visas and so on. But of course now that's not going to be a means for us, but it can be through tourism. How much, so an embassy sustains itself, and because we say we need to see this number of tourists coming to Uganda from your country. So we kind of build up the economic diplomacy over there.
There is some school of thought that actually Uganda's foreign policy has completely been abused by those who wield power, more especially when we create what I would call security instabilities in other countries. Of course, you know, we have had several deployments in South Sudan, in the Central African Republic, in Congo. Here we are in Sudan. The other last year, the beginning of last year, we saw deploying in Equatorial Guinea, and one would wonder what business do we have in Equatorial Guinea. That leaves Uganda's bilateral relations with other countries in question.
No, it's because it's been governed by people at the top for personal interest. First of all, what's happening in Equatorial Guinea is army for hire. And that's what we are, because Equatorial Guinea is a very rich country with a lot of oil and a despotic government like ours. And they needed somebody to come and guard their president. And so they take our... But it's very dangerous for us to set an impression that we have, an army for hire. It's not good whatsoever. Not that I have anything with, Equatorial Guinea and so on. But what we see in wars elsewhere, they have all been for the personal benefit of a few people, which is the way this country has been anyway. Look at what happened in Congo. We went into Congo, stole a lot of gold, stole a lot of timber. Congo went to the international courts. They got a ruling against us, and we are supposed to pay them $10 billion. The ruling is still outstanding. And just because we haven't paid that money yet doesn't mean we will not pay it. Because the thing with court rulings, once it is there and it's an international court ruling, at some stage, something has to be done. Either we go and negotiate with Congo and settle out of, that, or which we should have done as soon as Congo went to court. We should have settled, because that time I think with Kabila, there was a bit of a friendly relationship. But they didn't take it seriously. Then you have a ruling against you for $10 billion. That's a lot of money. That's actually almost the entirety of our budget in 2021, which we have to pay Congo. But here is the thing. Who took the gold? Who took the timber? It is a few people. But who pays the burden? It is Uganda. Now that's what it has always been. The personalization of resources and the nationalization of debt.
Does this bother you as a president-to-be, that a national army is being used to score individual interest in other countries?
Of course it does. That's the whole point. Because a national army is supposed to be for interests of the nation. Now that's how it is elsewhere. There is no place where people will deploy soldiers unless the country has an interest in that place. And now that's as a national interest. Because look at what happened in South Sudan, for instance. We send UPDF there, go and cause a lot of change there, and then now there's business opportunities opened up. Now that's what usually happens. That's when now it is time to get payback for what your soldiers did. Because always, the way the world runs, when the soldiers do their work, after that is what? Businessmen to go and come and cut deals to make money. Guess who was there cutting deals? Kenyans, not Ugandans. And so we lose a lot of business in South Sudan. Yet actually that would have been an opportunity for us at various levels to go and start businesses there. And actually Kenyans benefited. So Ugandan soldiers go and fight. When they finish, Kenyan businessmen go and get all the money. Now how fair is that? Of course that's because of bad leadership. That's the truth. And we are renting out armies here and there. Of course there was a genuine cause in Somalia. But even there now, the confusion has come to an end. It looks like even America opened an embassy now in Mogadishu again, and they're even asking us to leave. We're actually the ones requesting that we do not leave. And there was a time when even if this president threatened that we are leaving Somalia, everybody would come running, please don't leave, we need you there. But now it has changed. Now he's the one begging to leave. So this whole renting of the army, of course, has been a means of financial gain. What the classic example is what happened with Congo. There are so many people who enrich themselves, top soldiers, top politicians who enrich themselves of Congo's, resources, and yet it is now Uganda, collectively, which is going to pay the debt.
So, do we need reforms in Uganda's foreign policy, more especially the economic aspect? Because we see the battles that we have fought in many countries. We could be using it as a stepping stone to secure economic interest there. But
course,
we step out and we leave for others, for other countries to take over.
Of course, that's the point. Now, here's the thing. When I came into politics, I said I'm reclaiming our country. And our so it's a rock, okay? Reclaiming our country and our king. Now, the whole point here is the country has been taken away from us by certain people who control everything. And the rest of us are at best a market, you see. At worst even slaves, but at best a market. So you're a market to purchase things which belong to certain people, but they are the ones who have almost all factors of production which have been taken away from people. So the whole point, and that is true for economic policy in the country, it's true for foreign policy, as I've explained to you. It is true for our budgeting, for everything, even our business policies, even our tax policy is all based on one thing. There are people who are indomitables, who are untouchable, and those ones are exempt. Then there are those on whom the whole burden of tax has to be put. So that's what I say, we have to reclaim our country, because we do not own it. That's the truth.
In the first 100 days, if you take over office, what would you do with the presence of our soldiers in Somalia, the presence of some of our forward bases in South Sudan, the presence of some of our soldiers who are hired in Equatorial region? Are we seeing you recalling back their presence, them back up?
No, the thing is, I can't stand from where I am and say I'm going to recall them back. I have to get there and understand what interest we have here. So this mission to Somalia, what does Uganda as a nation get? And I'm talking about in terms of business opportunities after we've created peace, diplomatic and all sorts of other things.
But how many businessmen Ugandan business?
That's my point. That's my point. That's why I would say that. Can we have business here? Now that we have soldiers here, can they be followed by business? Because that's what happens elsewhere. Look at the way other countries do it. After the, I remember when NATO went and started bombing Gaddafi and so on. And so as soon as it became clear that Gaddafi is going, then the next thing I hear that the NATO countries and America are sitting in Cairo to discuss how to rebuild in Libya. They were discussing how to share Libya's wealth. That's what they are doing. They are not interested in rebuilding Libya. Of course, it's still not rebuilt. But the thing is, we've spent money doing this. Now we have to recover that money. Not that what they did is good. That's not what I'm suggesting. But what I'm saying is, if we send an army to Congo, we have to know that there are going to be commercial business interests which are going to benefit us and the expedition there, and us as a country, not as individuals. And the expedition there is not on our cost, because we can't afford that. So that is true for every other country. Now look, at some stage we actually had a lot of support for Rwanda when they were going to fight, to stop the genocide and all that. But we can't even open up a border with Rwanda. And you think we have any sort of diplomacy? We can't even discuss with a real sister country. If there is any such thing as a sister country, Rwanda and Uganda, our sister country. So, and we can't even discuss, we still have to have a border closed for all these months. So the truth is, it is all personal. So when there is a personal quarrel, it affects the whole country. So many people, if you go there, have been affected by the closure of the border on both sides, and it is totally unnecessary.
Well, let us talk about the GDP of Uganda. Well, there have been several reports from the central bank, from different economic experts, saying that there has been tremendous growth of Uganda's GDP. But some of us who have read economics to a certain level, you cannot talk of economic growth or GDP growing by a certain percentage when you still do less exports as compared to imports.
That's true. What you're talking about, our balance of trade, is one of the worst in the region. Do you know even Burundi has a better balance of trade than we do? And that's shocking, because what does Burundi produce? So, but you see, they have a better balance of trade because they don't import virtually everything. Now we came to a place where we lost all our capacity to do anything on our own. When somebody goes and sees what is lacking, what there is a market for, he's going to think of how to go and get it from China. Even things which can be manufactured here and ultimately come at, a smaller fee. So that causes. So we are importing agricultural produce which we should not be importing. It is the stupidest thing for Uganda to import anything agricultural, unless it's things which require very cold weather and stuff like that. But we should not. We are importing rice. You heard about that. How can we be importing rice? We even import groundnuts from Tanzania. I looked at that and I was in shock. How can Uganda import groundnuts? We import a lot of garlic. We import a lot of wheat. We import those are things which you should cut off our balance of trade and say, okay, we are going to import phones and cars and so on because we cannot make them. But at least let's start. We import Irish potatoes from Kenya. At least let's start saying these ones we can do here. We do not need to import. Then our balance of trade shrinks a bit, the negative balance of trade. And just so you know, up to 1989, we had a positive balance of trade of $30 million. Up to 1989. So that means we actually imported less things than we exported. Of course, most of the things we exported were agricultural produce, especially coffee. But we imported very few things, and a lot of the things we imported were actually machinery, agricultural machinery, tractors, harvesters, and things like that, because we were building ourselves as an agricultural country, an agricultural economy. And we exported a lot of coffee. Of course, at that time we were in the top two, between us and Brazil. We still export a lot of coffee. We are actually 8th largest exporter of coffee, and still a lot of money. But so my point is,
so how do you intend to fix that problem? I've
told you one of the first things is reduce on the things we import by making sure that we do not for starters, we cannot be importing anything agricultural. There is absolutely no need for that. There is no country in the world which has better soil than we do. That is, even maize sometimes. We've imported maize sometimes. What kind of stupidity is that? Like, where you're blessed in all those areas, and rather than being exporting to countries which are not as blessed as you, in terms of, arable land, you're importing. So you first cut off those. What are things which we import, which can be we can get here, we don't need to import? Reduce them, starting with agricultural things. There are others, okay? There is a lot of labor that we import here. There is very, look at our road sector. 70% of our roads are made by Chinese. And I'm not talking about high-tech roads, which our people cannot do here. Now, if you go to Kenya, any road construction that is $10 million and under, by law, belongs to local construction companies. If it is more, then they can think of foreign. Here, from 10 million shillings, you still have a Chinese. So when our people who are in road construction going to get anything? And now the thing is that those Chinese don't even subcontract our local people, and they can do that. You see, so those, we import a lot of labor. Of course, we export a lot of labor also. That's one of our biggest exports, by the way, cheap labor. We import a lot of agricultural produce. We import so many things which we can cut off our balance of trade. Then that is even before we now start saying, how do we increase our exports? So how do you reduce the balance of trade? Cut off what you're importing, which you do not have to import, and increase what you're exporting.
Well, for 35 years, Uganda's fiscal policy has been having problems, more especially when you look at how the weak shilling that we have in the region. Just countries of yesterday that emerging from genocide, Rwanda, Burundi, 2005, having a stronger currency than what we have 35 years down the road. How would you fix that to ensure that Uganda's shilling picks up?
First of all, you have to find out, how did it get there? How did we get there? We got there by abuse of the system. Now, when you hear stories like they are printing 90 billion shillings illegally outside the system, you see, because we know, of course, this government has created a parallel government. So there is a Minister of Finance, but then there is another Minister of Finance, you understand? Which this parallel government is just for those, the people I call the indomitables, just there. Now, somehow I thought when it comes to money, because those are very sensitive things, they don't do it that way. But then you find they are printing money illegally. And that story, it's not the first time they are doing it, it's just that it leaked that time. Now, how do you print money outside of the system? and you expect your currency to retain any strength. It will not, number one. So you'll give official figures of we've kept inflation 6%, 7% and under. But that's the official thing. Outside, there's something very unofficial in which they are money printing machines and people are generating money and nobody knows about it. But that's one of the things. Secondly, the currency can only be as strong as the productivity of the country that gives that currency its strength. For instance, what money is, other than colored paper, is the backing of a country. You know, that this is legal tender by this country and the strength of that country behind it. In other words, if I give you $100, I'm telling you the American government has given you permission to get the equivalent of this, you know, because they are the issuing authority. Now, it will only be as strong as their production. Now, what are we producing to make our currency strong? Okay? Why would anybody want? Because you see, you go anywhere and you change all of these currencies. But what are we producing?
Because they will tell you that they're producing coffee.
The thing is, if we only were producing, even agriculture, in the sort of quantities that we can do it, because we can't even start there, because we have the ability to be an agricultural powerhouse. And by the way, just so you know, there is a great food shortage in the world right now, and we can be the solution to that. Okay, I have seen those countries, like the country we've just mentioned, Equatorial Guinea. They import all their food from Brazil, from France, from Europe. All the foodstuffs are imported. We take their soldiers. Can't we tell them that now instead of importing rice from there, we can sell rice to you, so that at least we get a benefit from it? You understand? Because they are a very rich country. They have a lot of oil. They spend a lot of money importing foodstuffs. But we take soldiers there and we cannot even say, okay, now that we've given you soldiers, we also want you to buy our, our foodstuffs. You don't have to go to France. You don't have to go to Brazil. They're importing maize from there. They're importing rice from there. They're importing all sorts of things from those places. So it's just bad business. The truth is, and you have to understand where this government comes from. The whole idea behind this is impoverishment. Make people poor and they will keep you in power. Now, so every policy is geared in that direction. That's why when I say financial liberation, okay, as my core message, I know that people's hands have been tied financially. There is nobody who is free. You try to get, even people who like rich, they are keeping money in houses because you cannot take it to the bank because they will find the means of stealing it. Well, because there is no freedom. Now imagine a scenario where the biggest thief you're scared of is your government, which should be protecting you from thieves. Okay, and their systems. So when I talk about financial liberation, we talk about a time when people will be free to take billions in the bank and not be scared that the bank is full of security guys who will say, Joseph, this guy has a lot of money, find a way of getting it.
Joseph, time may not be our good interest, may not be on our side. Can I get to know what's your feel about Uganda's health sector? Because we have seen even international reports talking about how sick the health sector in Uganda is. Even when there are plans to build an international specialized hospital, money is being misappropriated through fake negotiations of agreements. Does this thing bother you when you walk in hospitals and you find people sleeping on floors?
How can it not?
Finding drugs written on not for sale, ending up in private pharmacies, or people working in government?
How can it not bother me? Because it actually causes death. And here's the thing. The health sector is the most foreign funded sector in the country. We get a lot of money for health just alone. And because of that, it is a sector with the most thieves. And they place them there because that's where all the money is. All the projects, remember the Global Fund, the Gavi Fund, we get between $400 and $500 million from American government for health sector every year. We get a lot of money in there. And yet it is the worst place that you can, imagine.
Where is the problem?
The problem, of course, the system rots from the top. That's the truth. The system rots from the top. And fish rots from the head, as I've said, and, has been quoted by... So, until the top is sorted, because the whole country is structured in such a way that they look for where there is money, and they try to take it. And now they will leave the education sector completely wasted. Health sector completely wasted. Why? Those are the most funded. That's where they'll put the most thieves. Okay? And you know what I'm talking about. Then also Karamoja, gold, that's where they put the most thieves. So if you want to know the big thief, imagine the person who was in Karamoja, then went to education sector. That's where those are the thieves, and I'm sure you know who I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
So now that's where everywhere you see where they believe they're supposed to be, where there is money, and they don't believe any of us deserve any services whatsoever. That's the truth. The most they would want to come to you is if there is any money they can get from you. Other than that, they are not interested in your life. They are not interested in your well-being and any such thing. And those are the things which actually got me to stand. Because you look at people and even those who say they want change, and you say that, do they really know what kind of change they want? Do they really know what this country would, what can transform this country, what kind of change they would want? And you say, and for most of them, I would say the answer is no. Okay, so I said, no, I'm not going to be on the sidelines. Something has to be done, because I have moved this country, first of all as a journalist, second as a pastor, a preacher, and now even as a politician. I've already moved, so many places in the country. I know exactly what I can do for different regions of this country, and in 1 year, people have money in their pockets. So those are the core issues that actually are at the bottom of my heart, for which I came out, and which will be the first things I do. First 100 days, how do we remove? And there are so many things, by the way, let me tell you, Timothy, so many things you can do in 3 months, 100 days, and immediately people start seeing a change in their pockets.
Well, Joseph, there is no democracy here. Let us first go in for a short commercial break. When we return, we shall start from the unemployment issue and how you are going to tackle the issue of corruption.
Credible, bold and accurate. You can trust us to add professional context and in-depth analysis to the web of current affairs every week. Share an experience with those that saw it happen. A blend of opinions from journalists, subject experts, and involved participants. The Newsroom, breaking down the weekly top stories. Join us at 9:30 p.m. every Saturday, only on STV.
You are welcome to the High School Apprentice Season 1, Facing the Future.
I'm Lubega Mahad.
Bilisa Morris.
And I'm really excited to join the High School Apprentice, and I'm looking forward to winning.
Buyajja natugamba nti bajja kujja batukime. Era nensanyuka nnyo okulaba nti mujja okumukima.
The next task, it's more of a sports task.
You're in the boardroom. You know what that means.
One of you is going home.
pani no pani. Buli kamu ka nkumi bili buoma. Do not speak of 1,000. It is 2,000. Do not speak of 1,000.
We've messed up. We've been selling at a lesser price.
I'll start off with you. I need 2 names from your team of people who did not perform.
We are aiming all to win.
Well, welcome back from that short commercial break. Joseph, unemployment has been a talk of over 30 years. Many students are being churned out of universities, but where they end up, no one knows. Only to know you find many of them are on the streets. Even when billions of shillings are being allocated for skilling Uganda, what I'm hearing is being called a yoga, but the impact is not being felt. In fact, others are believing that this money is diverted for other things, but using, in quotes, the issue of skilling Uganda. How do you weigh into this issue of unemployment in Uganda, which now stands at about 75%?
Can you even measure it? We hear statistics that the unemployment, percentage in other countries, so we try to measure it here. It's not even measurable in Uganda because the way they measure it there is there are bureaus where people go and register and give their skills and they say we are looking for work. Okay, so that's how they measure unemployment. Here we don't even have a means of measuring it. It could be 75, it could be 90, it could be 100. Okay, it can't be 100 because we know there are some people who are employed, but you understand what I'm saying. But you see, unemployment is a symptom of bad economic policies. So it just sifts through. Now, when I'm talking about those things of, we export this here, we do this, we take control of our economy and so on, those things automatically create employment. Okay, that's why you hear in other countries, presidents will say, "We've created this number of jobs." What they are doing, it's not created jobs. What is done is saying, my economic policies have led to this number of jobs being created, and people credit him for the jobs created. So they see unemployment as a symptom of bad economic policies. Now, that's the first thing you're talking about. Then also, the whole thing which they say skilling Ugandans, doing this and doing this, it's all talk. You understand? Remember there was a time where there was patriotism classes, and a lot of videos were spent in patriotism classes. It's all talk. And that's why these people, they just talk. And nobody is interested in actually skilling Ugandans, not anybody in this government. So you have to know that from the top, you change just a few economic policies and make them Uganda-centric. Okay, I'll give you an example. For instance, of Kenya in the road sector, Rwanda, all the companies which make roads, 51% of the people employed have got to be Rwandan. Now that policy creates employment. Now we have people who will come here as investors, bring in a lot of their labor, and skilled, semi-skilled, and at the best will only employ the very low-scale, non-skilled people whom they pay very small money, and that cannot even be counted as employment. It is just survival. And there's a big difference between employment and survival, because we have people who are working And they include their teachers paid 120,000 a month. How does somebody survive on that and get marry, find a woman and marry, have children on 120,000 a month? That is not even employment. That is slave labor. Then there are people who are those who they would say they create employment, who come and set up industries here and so on. Somebody works from 7 up to 8, 12 hours, and they are paid 2,000 shillings a day. Every day as you leave, they pay you 2,000. That is, you cannot count that as employment. That is slave labor. So that is survival. So now you see how countries around us have tried to change that. When it comes to this, you have to employ this number of Ugandans. Now, then they say, we've seen it in Tanzania, you have to prove to us that the person you're bringing, there is no Ugandan who can do that job. Now, by just changing that small thing, it wasn't like that before this man was there, the current Tanzanian president. Kikwete was a bit more like Museveni. Okay? Do this, just get money for yourself and what? Before him. Then this man comes, whereas he might have his shortcomings here and there, but at least when it came to the economic issue, he even went into embassies and told them, he went to the American embassy and told them, why are these guys here? We have Tanzanians who can do this job. So Americans will be on for visas, and even give them specifications. Here is where we need you. The rest employ Tanzanians. Now, there are certain economic, you go and try to get a job there, and you say, like, you have to make sure. Of course, there's all East African thing now, but people just coming in where you have all these people flooding in, and there is no only the very low skilled and worst paid jobs.
So now, how do you intend to address some of these problems in a country that claims it is a free market economy?
No, all of these countries are free market economies. Free market economy does not mean just flooding of cheap labor.
Dumping ground.
Yes, it doesn't mean a dumping ground. Number one, doesn't mean a flooding of cheap labor. It doesn't mean, non-protection of industries. That's not what it means. Look at what the Americans have been doing. Okay? They say we can make steel and aluminium here, so they put tariffs on people who are trying to import it from Europe. Europe complains, they say we have to protect our steel and aluminium workers. And what happens? The industry comes back alive. So, and they are the supposed, champions of a free market economy. But yet also them, they protect their industries. You go and try to export agricultural things to America, and you'll see they will not let you unless they don't have it. They cannot let you because they have their people to look after. Now, it's only in Uganda where you'll hear that a deal was made for people to import rice from Tanzania. You go and try to export rice to Tanzania, they will not let you. And yet, actually, we can make better rice than
let us have your feel on corruption, which actually even the international community is perturbed with. The unprecedented levels of corruption in Uganda are nagging. There are even, to an extent, that somebody looking for a job of a security guard in a private firm is asked money.
Yes.
Somebody to access drugs in a government hospital is asked what they call chitu kidogo here. Most of the buildings that are mushrooming in Kampala, they are either for permanent secretaries, principal accountants, procurement officers, who still grab public funds and invest at the expense of the taxpayer. How do you intend to address this problem? Because the man seems to have built a system tailored on corruption.
Actually, that last sentence you made is perfect, because what happens is this. It's like the analogy of, you've stolen a bag, let's say $100 million, and you're running, and they are chasing you, and you throw 10 or 1,000 to divert people, and then somehow these people get diverted by this, and they don't ever look at you. Here is the thing. There are 3 levels of corruption, the way I see it. The first corruption is the plunder of national resources. Of all the gold belongs to one family. All the oil, he even calls it my oil, and they export it to one family. All the mineral resources, all the natural resources, all the parties, they have taken over even the lucrative coffee industry and so on. You know what I mean? That is the first level. I don't even call it corruption. It is too grand to be called corruption. But the word corruption kind of scales it lower. It is plunder. It is actually looting of national resources. And you know what I'm talking about. That's the one that's where I want to start, by the way. Because you see, even if a traffic officer finds you on phone and you give him a 5K, that's corruption. But we are not starting there. You know, we hit the big fish first. That is the plunder of national resources. Now, there is where I am heading. That's what I'm targeting. Not this small, you know. Ultimately, of course, we work our way down. But you see, what these people try to do is try to fight corruption at a lower level, and yet it actually exists up there. So now, you start at the top. And now when they see that things which belong to the nation actually belong to the nation, and there is nobody who is personalizing them, then now you have the moral authority to come and... But what moral authority does this government have to come and stop somebody who is asking for, who is stopping somebody who is asking for money to get a tender, to award a tender for building a road, when for you you've taken all the gold? But when $1.3 billion of gold every year goes to individuals.
But when you say that so you are targeting to hit the big fish up, the moment it's destroyed, then you can move down to them.
Yes.
But there have been some arguments that actually the one you call the big fish, he's not in charge. He's being managed by mafias. And mafias are ready to crush any person who stands in their way.
Now, let me tell you.
Are you not swimming in murk waters?
Have you ever heard of anybody using the word mafia who is not somehow related to government? Let me tell you. Let me give you an example. Do you know these relatives who come to you and they want money and you don't want to give them money? And then you tell them, ask my wife. Then when she refuses, it's my wife. Me, I wanted to give you money. But it's my wife who is refusing. Mafia is a creation of the man at the top to try and deflect attention from himself. So everything mafia. Who are the mafia? Who appoints them? The chief mafia is Museveni himself. Now, let nobody deceive you that there is any group of mafia. There is none. Like, it's like you saying, I would have given you money, but my wife. You understand? And the wife you're talking about is a housewife. She's using your money. That is crap. That is a creation of Tamale Mirundi to deflect because he's a defender of Museveni. So everything by mafia. I'm telling you, there are no mafia. There are no mafias. He's the chief mafia. So, when you strike the sheep, the shepherd rather, the sheep will what? Scatter. That's what the Bible says. Strike the shepherd, the sheep will scatter. Now we are going for the shepherd. Now we will see if there will be mafia under the regime of Kabuleta. They are not there. They are just, you know, there is this thing where somebody, and we've seen that, where you see when a soldier is made to do a lot of things, and you know, when they get rid of him, then they say, no, he's the one, you know, Kaka, you know, did all this, then even newspapers are rubbishing him, you know, he was a murderer or a killer and what, but on behalf of who?
Well, Joseph, thanks for being part of the show, and we wish you at STV a successful campaign trail, and we hope that when we invite you the next time, you come to our studios for a live, elaborate explanation about your manifesto and other issues that seems to be affecting Uganda. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And to the viewers, this marks the end of our race 2021. Stay better, but not bitter. And always remember that Uganda is bigger than all of us.